Well, hello everyone, welcome back to the Seastone Lowdown. My name is Logan White, joining you from my office, which is a little office reference for those of you who are into the office. So there you go. Well, Seastone Lowdown, what I want to do, like we do every week, is to give you a little bit of information about what's going on at the church, and also give you guys a short kind of devotional thought based off of our message this last week. So for announcements and just kind of what's coming up, Easter is coming up. It's April 4th, and we're going to have Easter a little bit differently, than it traditionally is, but we still want to do our Easter egg hunt for our kids. So we're going to be doing that like after service on Easter Sunday. So if you guys would be willing to help us out, what we need for you guys is filled Easter eggs. So filled with either candy or like small toys kind of thing. So if you guys could bring those in, and we'll have a bucket starting this Sunday out on the patio. If you guys just bring some filled Easter eggs so we can have those to put out for the kids on Easter Sunday, that would be great. And also some other ways you guys can get involved is continue to, these things are ongoing. I'll just continue to push you guys to get involved in them. So we have men's and women's Bible study. That men's study happens on Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. and women's study happens on Wednesday nights. And you can find information on how to get involved in those things on our website, cornerstone.la. We also have life groups that are going on every other week. I have a young adult life group that meets on Monday nights. We met this last Monday, and also a young adult small group that meets on Sunday evenings at the Foster's house in San Pedro. So we just encourage you guys to continue to get involved in these things. We push these kind of smaller groups in these different settings to just encourage you guys to have conversation about what God's doing in your guys' lives, and whether it's based on what the message is or it's not. It's just a different thing. We just want to continue to encourage you guys to develop community at our church, and so those things are there for you to do those things. So jumping into kind of a devotional thought for today. This last Sunday I preached on Noah, and really we talked about this idea that God is a redeemer, and we looked at this whole narrative, biblical narrative, that God is redeeming mankind, God is redeeming people, and He's pulling us out of our wickedness and sin, and it is really that God is the hero of this narrative, not individual people like Noah. And so really what the application point from this last Sunday was, how is God redeeming your story in terms of like what is God doing in your life? Things that He's asking you to give up and surrender to Him, and hit on that idea, as Nate talked about with Adam and Eve, of really doing things God's way instead of doing things your way. So Noah's life really reflects this idea that God acts in our real world, in our real time, in our real space. It's a really important distinction to make when we think about God and think about our relationship with God, is that God is actually acting currently in our lives in a real way, just as God acted, and the Bible is a history of how God acted throughout history in the real world, in people's real lives in real ways. So my encouragement for you guys today, as we're thinking about this idea of God being a redeemer, and how God redeems our stories, and how God works in our world in our real time and real space, I think it's important for us to ask ourselves, how is God working in my life? Right? I think that's sometimes we skip that question at church. Or we just kind of think like, hey, what areas of my life am I sinning, and what areas of my life do I need to give over to God? Which I think is an important question for us to ask, obviously, but I think it's also important for us to just try to identify in what ways is God interacting in my real time, in my real space, in my real life. How is God encouraging me? What is God pushing me towards? What is God pulling me away from? Really just how is God acting in my life? To reflect on that God does do that in our lives, and we should be observant of it, we should be aware of it, and we should be seeking out in which ways God is acting in our lives. So I encourage you guys to think about this week as we have talked about God as a redeemer. God is also in action in our lives, and He's redeeming our lives currently, but He's also working in our lives towards and pushing us towards these good works that He has set aside for us before we're even born. So I encourage you guys to think about how you can step into those good works, how you can really be listening to God's voice. And part of that is being in community, these things I talked about earlier, just really hearing from other people how God is encouraging you, and how God is maybe speaking to you and encouraging your steps in your life. So thank you guys for joining us for the Seastone Lowdown. We look forward to seeing you guys next Sunday.